The debt has never been debt like this in human history. So the next time we have a problem, it's going to be very, very, very bad.
Ich hatte gerade eben die große Ehre, ein Interview mit dem legendären Hedgefondsmanager Jim Rogers aufzuzeichnen. Jim Rogers ist nicht irgendjemand, er ist einer der größten Investoren aller Zeiten. Gemeinsam mit seinem Geschäftspartner George Soros hat er damals den Quantum-Fonds gegründet und er hat es geschafft, in einem Zeitraum, als der S&P 47% zulegen konnte, unglaubliche 4200% Rendite zu generieren.
I've read enough history and been around long enough to know that when everybody is having a good time, you should be worried.
Ich kann mich noch daran erinnern, so 14 Jahre zurück, als ich meine Ausbildung gemacht habe, da war mal nicht so viel los bei der Arbeit. Da habe ich ein Buch von Jim Rogers gelesen, ja, denn er hat neben seinen fabulösen Investmentrekorden die Welt mit dem Motorrad bereist. Ja, das war damals ein Guinness World Record. Er hat eine 4-jährige Weltreise mit einem umgebauten Auto gemacht, war damals auf jedem Kontinent der Welt und er hat wirklich unglaublich viel zu erzählen, ja. Wir haben über die Parallelen gesprochen zu den 1970er Jahren, ob uns ein ähnliches Szenario droht, hohe Inflation, danach Stagflation. Wir haben über Gold, über Silber, über Bitcoin, über Emerging Markets, über Agriculture und viele weitere spannende Themen gesprochen. Deswegen war es für mich wirklich eine besonders große Ehre, diesen Mann interviewen zu dürfen. Wenn ihr euch in Zukunft wünscht, ja, dass ich weiterhin solche Leute interviewen darf, dann lasst dem Kanal bitte ein Abo da, liked das Video und kommentiert fleißig. Und wenn es einfach nur ein Wort ist, in die Kommentarspalte rein für den Algo, ja, dass wir auch in Zukunft solche spannenden Gesprächspartner hier auf dem Kanal haben. Das Video ist voll auf Deutsch untertitelt, ja, also ihr könnt es ganz in Ruhe anschauen. Und ja, viel Spaß beim Video.
About 40 years ago, you went on a motorcycle world tour and you have seen a lot. How has the world changed since then?
Oh my gosh. Well, the world is always changing, first of all. So no matter when we ask that question, there are great changes. One of the first things I can think of is there were no credit cards in most of the world back then, believe it or not. In Russia, India, most parts of the world, you could not use credit cards. They didn't even know what they were. So now there are credit cards everywhere. Everywhere. That's one major change. The world has gotten much smaller. We can communicate. There was no internet back then. We could not communicate. We had to send postcards to America hoping somebody would know we were still alive. There was no way to communicate. But now we can do everything very quickly.
Thank you, Jim. I don't know any pessimist who got rich with stocks. I believe you need to be an optimist and have hope for the future. In your many years as an investor, do you think we are in serious trouble right now, or there always been problems and we shouldn't worry too much?
Well, Moritz, yes, there have always been problems. You can pick any decade, any year, and the world always was facing problems, some more than others. It has been, for instance, in the U.S., 15 years now since we had a bear market or declining market. So that's the longest in American history. So I don't know if we're ever going to have a bear market again. Well, I do know we're going to have many bear markets again. But for one thing that I'm worrying about right now is the next economic problem is getting closer and closer. And the next time, it's going to be very, very serious. We had a problem in 2008 because of too much debt. Oh, Morris, since 2009, the debt has skyrocketed everywhere in the world. The debt has never been debt like this in human history. So the next time we have a problem, it's going to be very, very, very bad. And if you look out the window, there are other potential problems too, but that's enough to start.
Okay. Can you talk about the parallels to the stagflation of the 1970s? You managed that period really successfully. Do you see the current environment as similar?
Well, it's different in some ways, important ways. In the 1970s, the United States was a creditor nation. Now, the United States is the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. And the debt is getting worse every day, every week. So that's a major difference. There is no gigantic creditor nation now like there was then. I mean, even China has a lot of debt now. So that is a major difference. In the 70s, the debts are huge now compared to then. But we certainly do have inflation again, because one of the things that governments have been doing is printing a lot of money. They think if there's a problem, all they have to do is print money to solve the problem. No, that makes the problem worse. So the debt is getting higher and higher, and the inflation is going to be higher and higher.
Thank you, Jim. The market concentration is at an all-time high. Based on your experience, how do you think this will play out? What are the potential outcomes and risks?
If you look around the world, many markets are making new highs. I mean, nearly everybody is having a good time right now. China's depressed, but nearly every other country is doing well, partly because so much money has been printed. So I've read enough history and been around long enough to know that when everybody is having a good time, you should be worried. Because if everybody's having a good time, it's going to come to an end someday. Not now, but I see some of the signs developing that problems will come eventually.
Do you think China is now the cheapest stock market in the world?
Well, it probably, it's not the cheapest one off. You know, China got hit with a big virus. The virus that came out of China and hit China very badly. But also they had a property bubble, a huge property bubble. They tried to pop it for several months, several years. They were never successful. But now the property bubble has collapsed. And so it's causing problems. So China has two problems right now, mainly recovering from the property bubble. And it was such a big bubble, it's going to take a while to recover.
Okay, thank you. After the nuclear bomb and rising economic power, the US became the world leader. Now there's a race to develop the first artificial general intelligence to reach singularity. Do you think this race will shape the next world power and the next world order?
Well, it's certainly going to change everything we know. It already is changing everything we know, and that's going to continue. I would expect the U.S. to be one of the leaders in that kind of technology, partly because of Silicon Valley and partly because of America's past. But I don't know who's going to be the leader. Some of the Asian countries have been working a lot. Some of the Asian countries have many millions of engineers that they're graduating every year. So I don't know who. It will probably be several countries, maybe America, maybe China, who knows. But it's happening, and it's going to change everything we know. But don't worry, this has happened before. Electricity changed everything we know, and we still have electricity. So don't worry, we will all be better off someday.
Yeah. You are long the US dollar, but why?
Well, I own a lot of US dollars. The US dollar is a very flawed currency. I mean, the US is the largest debtor nation in the history of the world, and the debt is getting worse every day. So you should say, well, why do you own US dollars? I own them because many people still think the US dollar is a safe haven, and when problems come, people want to find a safe haven. Many people will turn to the US dollar when we have problems again. My plan is it will go up a lot, and I hope I'm smart enough to sell them if they go up a lot. Because as I have already said, the U.S. is the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. It's getting worse every day. your next question should be, well, where will you put the money when you sell it, the U.S. dollars? And I don't have an answer. I'm looking. If you have an answer, please tell us all.
Okay, maybe the answer is gold. Yeah, you talk about a lot of about gold in the past. Now we've seen all-time highs. Is gold the answer, or maybe Bitcoin?
Well, I own gold. I own silver. If I were buying one today, I would buy silver. Silver is down 40% from its all-time high. Gold is making all-time highs. I own both. I'm not selling either, but if I were buying one this week, I would buy more silver. It's not Bitcoin in my view. I don't own any Bitcoin. I never have. I have never sold any Bitcoin short. So I don't see, governments like control and governments like monopoly. And I don't think most governments are going to say, everybody's working on computer money, by the way, including the U.S. China's ahead of the rest of us. But I don't think most governments are going to say someday, okay, this is money now. This is the new money. But if you want to use that other money, you can. That's not the way governments think.
But after the approval of Bitcoin ETFs, do you see more opportunities for Bitcoin because it's harder to stop the Bitcoin hype?
Well, of course. I mean, if there are more ways to trade anything, whether it's wheat or IBM, people trade it. And the market for Bitcoin continues to expand. And maybe someday everybody's going to be trading Bitcoin all around the world. But the people who are Bitcoin advocates say it's going to be money, it's going to replace money. That then I do not see, because governments want monopoly and want control. But if Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies just become trading vehicles, why not? Doesn't hurt anybody, and why not? Sure. The problem is that I don't see them going much beyond being a trading vehicle, which they might, but beyond that, I don't see much future.
Thank you. I have read books by you and your business partner, George Soros. I respect really your track record and performance. The portfolio gained 4,200%, while the S&P advanced about 47%. How was your working relationship with George? What strengths did you both have? And how did you make difficult decisions together?
Well, first of all, that was 45 years ago. I mean,
but it's the best track record in history, Jim. It's the best track record in history.
I know, but I mean, what can I say? You might as well ask me about my first wife or where I went to university or something. That's far, far, far in the past. Yes, we were successful. We both loved what we were doing. But yes, we were successful. But that was 45 years ago.
But what has changed since then?
What has changed since then?
So there are other rules to be a successful trader?
Well, first, I stopped working because I wanted to have different lives. I wanted to have adventure. I wanted to go around the world on my motorcycle, and then I wanted to go around the world again in a car. So I wanted different lives. Now, there's nothing wrong if you could work 100 years in the markets. And I once knew a guy who worked until he was 105. He loved it every day. But what has changed for me is I have gone on and had many different lives since then. I still invest some, but nothing like what I did before. I don't know where George is now, but from what I read, he's still investing, which is fine. Great. If that's what he wants to do, do it.
In every aspect of life, social media has gained a lot of attention in the finance world. I have seen some posts where Elon Musk criticized the open society from George. How do you feel about publicly addressing these kinds of opinions?
Well, I mean, I just don't know about them. I told you I haven't seen or had any contact with George in over 45 years. So how can I comment when I don't know anything? Many people in the world do comment when they don't know anything. But I try not to comment about something if I do not know about it.
Do you think it's tougher to gain good results in the market today because the market has more up and downs, and the Fed is more important than back then? Well, or maybe more important?
But if we read back over market history or world history, there have always been gigantic swings in the markets. New things have happened, caused changes, caused big swings. I don't know if it's worse now or better, but I do know that there have always been huge market swings. I know that when I started in the business, there were still huge market swings. I do know that things have changed, obviously. Everything is on the computer now. I can remember when I started, everything was on paper. Everything. You had to get your prices from pieces of paper. That's all changed, and it will continue to change. 100 years ago, they didn't have the telegraph. I mean, they used the telegraph, and they used paper, and they barely had the telephone. The world has always been changing, and the markets have always changed with the world and will always continue to do so.
How do you look at the mining industry? Gold is nearly $2,500. ISC is nearly $1,300, $400. Is there a big opportunity in the mining sector?
Well, yes. I said I own gold and I own silver, and I will buy more of both if they go down. But yes, if you know a good mining company, especially if you know one in Berlin that's got a lot of gold, you'll make a lot of money. But just be careful. But yes, there are some great mines in the world. I don't know if any of them are really cheap right now because gold is at an all-time high and silver is making new high prices. But yes, there have always been opportunities in mining, and there always will be. I don't know any right now because I prefer to buy gold and silver itself. But if you know about good miners, you're going to get very rich.
And are you still optimistic for the agriculture sector right now?
Oh, yes. I mean, agriculture has been a bad place to be for a long time. Sugar prices are down over 50% from their all-time high. That's true of many agricultural products. So, yes, we're going to continue to eat. We're going to continue to wear clothes probably for the rest of our lives. So, yes, there are opportunities in agriculture. Not many people have been going into agriculture for a long time. The average age of farmers in Japan is over 60 years old. The average age in America is over 55. Not many people have become farmers in the last few decades. So we're going to have a shortage of farmers too, sometime in the next few years. So if you don't like the markets, think about becoming a farmer.
Yes, maybe. Maybe after the question. Circling back to your world tour, you have traveled to various countries. What would be one final takeaway for our visitors on a great ways to live abroad, considering asset protection and protectionism?
Well, my first advice is that everybody should see as much of the world as they can, especially if you're a young person, because it will teach you a huge amount about the world, and it will teach you about yourself as well. So yes, I hope that everybody will travel and see as much of the world as they can. And it will also lead to investment opportunities if you are an investor, or it'll teach you agricultural opportunities if you're a farmer. The world is exciting, huge, and always changing. So I urge everyone to see as much of the world as they can. It will help you learn about your own country if you see the world.
And the best country to live for an investor, 200 years ago it was London, 100 years ago it was New York. Now you moved to Singapore. There are some other areas, Dubai, the Emirates, with a lot of growth, with low taxes. And yeah, what do you think about these areas?
Well, the reason I moved to Singapore is because I wanted my children to speak Chinese. I was trying it in New York and they were doing it, but it turned out that it wasn't the best way. So I realized that if I was serious and wanted these children to really speak good Chinese, I had to move to a city or a country where they had to speak Chinese. So that's why we came to Singapore. Now, Singapore is a very well-run country. It's been a great success story. So I'm very happy living in Singapore, but that's not why I came. I came so my children would speak Chinese, and they do.
Is there any country, emerging markets, you have a focus right now? Like you talked a few years ago about Uzbekistan or Mexico and so on. Is there now a favorite country?
Well, I would say Uzbekistan is still probably a very good place to explore. It's a huge country. It's been extremely successful at times in history. And the market is still not fully developed. But most markets around the world are very strong, very high. The U.S. is an all-time, even Japan. Japan is at the highest it's been in 35 years. So many markets are doing very well, except China, of course. China's still depressed. But other than that, most markets have been successful, have been bullish in the last few years.
What's your thought about big tech?
We have had these periods in history when some stocks are very, very strong and they go higher and higher every day, and many people buy them. It has usually been a sign in the past that we're coming towards the end of a bull market, of a strong market period. So I would not buy them now unless, and I don't know enough, but if I knew a lot, I would not buy them because they've been very, very strong for a long time. I mean, nobody's going to discover anything new about these companies. They're on the newspaper and the television every day and on the computer every day. I think everybody knows about them, except me.
Some companies like Nestle, Pernod Ricard, Unilever trade at historical low valuations. What's your thoughts on these companies? Are they interesting right now?
Well, of course they are, but the problem with that is that the bull market has been going on for a long time. It's been going on for 14 or 15 years. That's the longest in American history. Now, often if you buy cheap blue chips near the end, you will make some money on a short-term basis. But the problem is that we're getting closer to the end. It's been 13 or 14 years. That is the longest in American history. This is for me, historically, not a good time to be junking into stock markets. We already have a lot of good news. The time to buy anything is when people are in despair, when people are unhappy. People are not unhappy now. People are very happy. Even the ones for the Unilever, they're happy. They're not losing a lot of money. Some of them are making money. And those are fabulous companies, cheap stocks. It's okay to buy them if you ask me, if you know what you're doing. But this is not the beginning of a bull market, so be worried, be careful.
For the people from Europe, especially Germany, a lot of people from our community are from Germany. What are your thoughts when you look at Europe and Germany? Are they between China and USA?
Well, I certainly love Europe and love the countries and the cities and the cultures, but I don't know, the Euro's been around for a while. We've already had one country leave the Euro. And what has happened in history is when things start going wrong, the politicians will say, well, let's leave the Euro. It's a bad idea. There are already politicians who say it's bad. You know what happened in England? They left. There are already some politicians saying the euro is a bad thing. So when things get bad again, I would imagine you'll have more politicians saying bad things about the euro. So I certainly don't want to buy the euro now, because I would suspect there are going to be some bad times coming in the future.
Jim, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Have a nice evening.
It's my pleasure, my pleasure. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good luck. See you again.